this has, for Bud and I both, this has gone by so fast already. We're reaching the halfway point already, and our teaching time is goes very, very quick in here. So we're going to kind of be, knocking some stuff out. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. So I'm going to open with prayer, and then we're going to go with tonight's lesson. So let's pray. God, we thank you for the opportunity to come together to work on relationships, whether it's people that are single and are thinking about the kind of person that they want to date and marry, or couples in here that are dating, couples in here that are married. You know all of our marriages, all of our relationships, Lord. We just ask that you would enhance. That's sort of the word that you gave to me, that we would enhance every relationship in here, that you would still be working, Lord. I ask that everyone in here, it could be in the reading, it could be in something we say, it could be in something totally on their own, but there would be a nugget for everybody that would enhance their marriages and their relationships, Lord. We just love you so much, and we know how much you love marriage. And we want to learn all that we can moving forward. Would you be with us in this place tonight and help us to grow closer to you and grow closer to each other? And we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so this is session 3, and tonight we're going to talk about service. If you do not have anything to write with and you want to take some notes, back there by the doors, there's a low chair, and there's some note cards back there. If somebody, you want to jot something down right back there, you can grab as many of those as you want to. Pens are in the seat back pockets. The homework was to, hopefully some of you, I've talked to a few people about that you found out what your love languages are, and hopefully you were able to take that quiz. It wasn't too hard, and that you enjoyed that. And are now trying to think about what your partner's love language is instead of focusing on your own. And the other homework was to read chapters 1 and 2 in the book. If you were able to do that, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm not going to spend much time in chapter 1. There was lots of good statistics and all kinds of things in there. I hope you get something out of that. But just as way of introduction, and I've tried to pull out a few quotes from the book that I really like. I mean, there's some really, really good stuff in here. And this one, I think, sort of introduces the evening for us. And this is the only quote I have from chapter 1. So this will be starting on page 43. You're welcome to follow along, or you can just listen. And I think this sets the tone for the evening pretty well. And this is about halfway down the page where it says, "No false choices." We should rightly object to the binary choice that both traditional and contemporary marriage seem to give us. Is the purpose of marriage to deny your interests for the good of the family, or is it rather to assert your interests for the fulfillment of yourself? The Christian teaching does not offer a choice between fulfillment and sacrifice, but rather mutual fulfillment through mutual sacrifice. That's going to be kind of a big key for us tonight. Mutual fulfillment through mutual sacrifice. Jesus gave himself up. He died to himself to save us and make us his. Now we give ourselves up. We die to ourselves, first when we repent and believe the gospel, and later as we submit to his will day by day. Subordinating ourselves to him, however, is radically safe, because he has already shown that he was willing to go to hell and back for us. This banishes fears that loving surrender means loss of oneself. So, what do you need to do to make marriage work? You need to know the secret, the gospel, and how it gives you both the power and the pattern for your marriage. On the one hand, the experience of marriage will unveil the beauty and depths of the gospel to you. It will drive you further into reliance on it. On the other hand, a greater understanding of the gospel will help you experience deeper and deeper union with each other as the years go on. There, then, is the message of this book, that through marriage, the mystery of the gospel is unveiled. Marriage is a major vehicle for the gospel's remaking of your heart from the inside out and your life from the ground up. The reason that marriage is so painful and yet wonderful is because it is a reflection of the gospel, which is painful and wonderful at once. The gospel is this: we are more sinful and flawed in ourselves than we ever dared believe. Yet at the very same time, we are more loved and accepted in Jesus Christ than we ever dared hope. This is the only kind of relationship that will really transform us. Love without truth is sentimentality. It supports and affirms us, but keeps us in denial about our flaws. Truth without love is harshness. It gives us information, but in such a way that we cannot really hear it. God's saving love in Christ, however, is marked by both radical truthfulness about who we are, and yet also radical unconditional commitment to us. The merciful commitment strengthens us to see the truth about ourselves and repent. The conviction and repentance moves us to cling to and rest in God's mercy and grace. The hard times of marriage drive us to experience more of this transforming love of God. But a good marriage will also be a place where we experience more of this kind of transforming love at a human level. The gospel can fill our hearts with God's love so that you can handle it when your spouse fails to love you as he or she should. That frees us to see our spouse's sins and flaws to the bottom and speak to them, and yet still love and accept our spouse fully. And when, by the power of the gospel, our spouse experiences that same kind of truthful yet committed love, it enables our spouses to show us the same kind of transforming love when the time for it comes. When the time comes for it. This is the great secret. Through the gospel, we get both the power and the pattern for the journey of marriage. So, if you have been here with us these last couple weeks, you know that I talked about that if you had a job to do as a couple and you had a toolbox and you opened the toolbox and it was empty, it would be hard to work on and repair anything without tools in the toolbox. So we began with the very first week, and I had a little symbol of everything. The first thing is God is your first love, not your spouse. And so the Bible represents, it's my little representative of working on your relationship with God first and how important that is to your marriage. And then last week we talked about covenant, and we've got a cord of 3 strands, the white being longer. God has no beginning and no end. He represents the middle, and as we put him in the middle, he draws us to each other as he draws him to ourselves. And so this week, we have a new tool for the toolbox, and it is a pitcher. And so there's nothing fancy about it. It's just a regular little white pitcher. Now, if you look at this, it is a vessel that holds something. And so we could think of ourselves maybe as this pitcher. And there's really 2 components to this that are very important. The first one is it has a spout. So it has the ability to pour out, to give. But it also has a handle. And the handle is very important because we might want to say in our relationships, sure, I will be generous to the other person. I want to give to them. God, pick me up and pour me out. But that's not how it works. You've got to grab hold of the handle, and you decide, I want to pour out for my spouse, my boyfriend, girlfriend. I want to serve them. And so that's what we're going to spend our time talking about tonight. So that is the next important thing that there needs to be in the marriage relationship, this tool of service and how important it is to each other. So to talk about service, I'm going to have to talk about something else first. And so I'm going to talk about self-centeredness. Self-centeredness, selfishness. And I really don't like to spend that much time on what I consider the more negative things, but I think we've got to spend some time there first. And so if I said everybody in this room that we had something in common, you could come up with stuff. You'd be like, well, we're all human beings, and yeah, but that's not where I want to go, so don't go there. Where I want to go is that our default in our flesh, for all of us, is that we are selfish. If you like the word self-centered better, if that's less like, that's a pretty hefty word, you can use that word, but we tend to focus on ourselves. And we really can't help it. You can't get outside of yourself and into another person, so we tend to have that avenue. It's just our default in our flesh. And society promotes that. Sometimes we see it play out, and I made a little list. So I wrote some things down. I wasn't sure I would be able to remember them. And so these are just a few things I thought of that as we live in the world, what do they tell us about ourselves? Do what makes you happy. You deserve it. Take care of yourself first. Be indulgent. Pamper yourself. I put this one on there because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings if this is what you do, but this to me spoke so strongly of where we have landed as a selfish people, and we just are not even aware of it. So if you do this, I did not pick you out. I did see this on Facebook. I don't think it was anybody in here, but I did see it the other day. I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw this in there. Okay, all of us in here, another thing we have in common, we all have a birthday, right? It's okay to have a birthday. So a few years ago, I started to see this thing that people were posting, it's my birthday week. But just yesterday, I saw, it's my birthday month. Now, if you do that, if that's like your thing, this is not me bagging on you, so don't go home crying and go, Chris, what's so mean to me? I wasn't mean to you. I'm just throwing it out there as an example of, do you see where we have gone? We have a birthday. Celebrate it, enjoy it, but now it's not just one person I see that does this, a birthday month. What does that mean? What does that even look like, that it's like October? It's mine. Nobody else has a birthday in October, just me. This month is all about me. And what I'm telling you is that this is how society starts to affect us, and we start to go, why shouldn't it be about me? Right? Because other places we go will say it's not about you. Your job doesn't say it's about you. And so you're like, and so society is pumping this stuff at us. Go to Burger King and have it your way. You can have whatever you want, and you should make it about you. And so we've gone from having a birthday to a birth month. And I was like, what's next? Is it just going to be like we just start on, it's every year is my birth year. So I start on January 1st, and then I go all the way. I don't know. But can you see how that starts to affect us? And we're like, I should take care of myself. It is all about me, whatever. And then we see it creep in the church. Now, I'm not going to tell you how many of these things. These people over here will know how many of these things have been said at Harvest. Many of them have, and I'm not going to tell you which ones, but you might be surprised at this. But here's where our self-absorption comes here. I don't like the music. You don't have enough programming. You have too much programming. The pastor didn't say hello to me on Sunday. Nobody reached out to me. Somebody sat in my seat. It was too crowded, so I just went home. The service went more than an hour. What? What? Or this one, you get this one all the time. We didn't do that at my last church. Which they should probably follow up with, we're not going to do that at our next church either, because they're going to be rolling right along. Do you see how we just are like, this is about me. It's a me focus, and we have a really hard, it's our default. It's not really our fault, but there's things that promote it. And then finally within marriage, and I just put a few in marriage that really show us our selfish nature. And I hear these all the time. Bud and I talked today that we have a pretty good sample. We've been doing a lot of marriage counseling for years and years, and we have pretty good sampling, I think, of our community. I hear this a lot. That's her job. That's his job. It's his fault. It's her fault. I kept that one short because you see all the other ones, how they build and build and build to us, and then we walk into our marriage and we're like, here I am. But the other spouse is walking in going, well, here I am. Now what are we going to do? Right? So it sort of turns into, I put a translation in here for all of those things then, and you can fill in the blanks for yourself in your own relationships. If you would just blank, then I would blank. You see, it turns into a transaction. I'm not going to budge until you do what I think you should be doing, and then maybe I'll throw you a bone. And that's sort of where we land with this whole idea of being selfish. And it's really pervasive, and we don't think about it that much because we can't get outside of ourselves so much. But there should not be anything in the church that we don't talk about. Nothing. And so even in our big marriage passage, and so if you have a Bible and you want to turn to Ephesians chapter 5, Ephesians chapter 5, and we'll just start right there at verse 22. We even find our selfishness rolling over into when we read Scripture. Because men, this is their favorite line. And I don't just mean men here. Men that aren't even believers will use this line. They use the Bible when they want it. Verse 22, the first part of it is a favorite of men. Wives, submit to your own husbands. And they act like there's a period right there or maybe an exclamation point. And then wives, we're just as selfish. We love verse 25. We just jump right to verse 25. Husbands, love your wives, period, exclamation point. And here's what we miss. The heart of the passage begins with this verse, which is verse 21. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Submit to one another. It doesn't talk about, I have to do something too. Submit to one another out of your relationship with Jesus Christ. And that's the part we tend to forget because we focus on selfishness. We miss that point. We're going to talk a lot about that passage next week, so I'm not going to do any more with that. I'm not sure where Bud's going to go tonight. But I want to read you a couple of quotes from chapter 2 that go along with this. I've got you to the point where you're thinking, okay, we're all going to be in that category, and that's going to be an answer to a lot of our bickering, disagreements, whatever they might be. And so there's just a couple that I'm going to read. The first one is at the bottom of page 64. Bottom of page 64. See your own selfishness as a fundamental problem and to treat it more seriously than you do your spouse's. What? You got to look at your own selfishness. Our default, again, is to look at our spouse and go, but they're selfish. It's not saying to do that. It's look at your own. Why? Only you have complete access to your own selfishness, and only you have complete responsibility for it. So each spouse should take the Bible seriously, should make a commitment to give yourself up. You should stop making excuses for selfishness. You should begin to root it out as it's revealed to you, and you should do so regardless of what your spouse is doing. If two spouses say to each other, I'm going to treat my self-centeredness as the main problem in the marriage, you have the prospect of a truly great marriage. And then one more on the bottom of 66 and into the top of 67. The Christian principle that needs to be at work is spirit-generated selflessness. Now listen to this really good. Not thinking less of yourself or more of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. It means taking your mind off yourself and realizing that in Christ your needs are going to be met and are, in fact, being met so that you don't look at your spouse as your Savior. People with a deep grasp of the gospel can turn around and admit that their selfishness is the problem and that they're going to work on it. And when they do that, they will often discover an immediate sense of liberation, of waking up from a troubling dream. They see how small-minded they were being, how small the issue is in light of the grand scheme of things. Those who stop concentrating on how unhappy they are find that their happiness is growing. You must lose yourself to find yourself. It's one of the biggest principles in all the gospel. It is the gospel message, but it doesn't come easy to us. It's just not our natural thing. So God, He creates marriage, and it's going to be, of all the relationship, it is going to be the one that is the one to work on your selfishness. Because I was saying to Bud today, I'm like, he and I can sit down and have a conversation, and we can each be like super selfish people, but we're not going to reveal that to each other, and we don't have to. Because he's going to go home to his house, and I'm going to go home to my house. And so we can present ourselves really good. But even if you secretly are like, I'm never going to let my spouse know that I'm really, really selfish, guess what? They're going to find out. Because so that is what God wants to chip away, and make us more like Him. Because He was the most selfless, perfect being that ever was and ever will be. And that's what He wants us to be as well. But He gives us each other to kind of, sometimes it feels like hammering that stuff out, doesn't it? All right, I am almost out of my time, and I'm almost at the end of my list, so I'm doing well. I know I'm moving fastly. Fastly? I know I'm moving fast. You know what I meant. All right, I got a question for you. It's rhetorical. You don't have to answer it, but you can kind of answer it in your head. Is love a feel or a do? Is love a feel or a do? Is it a noun or is it a verb? The world says that love is a feel. It is a feeling. And that everything that indicates whether things are going well for you is going to be if you feel it. And only if you feel it. And the world is also pumping into us by celebrities, all kinds of people, the promotion of as soon as you don't feel it, throw it away. People outside of this area would not understand this little term that I made up, but you all will get it. We have a PALS mentality, right? You go to PALS and you're like, if you order it, and doggone it, if you get around to the other side, are you not offended if your bag is not hanging out the window? And you're like, what is this? I have to wait 10 seconds? We have this idea that everything has to be quick and about us and about how we feel. That's made me unhappy. But the biblical term is do. Love is a do. Love is service. And when you serve each other, the feelings come later, not first. If you're walking around and everything you do in life is indicated by your feelings, you're going to be in trouble, and you're going to be in trouble a lot. You're going to get your feelings hurt all the time. That's why people get offended. It's all about how I feel. You said something that might have been constructive for me, but I'm like, it hurt my feelings. I'm like, I'm offended. I'm out. That's what we do now. And that's what's being taught about marriage. If I don't feel it, there's nothing there. Not true. We do. We serve. That is the biblical model. All right, I'm going to throw this practical in there because I want you to get this. When I say that the default of our selfishness comes to us, it's just our go-to, but there's going to be particular times when you're going to be more selfish than others. So if you're taking notes, I want you to write this word down, halt. H-A-L-T, halt. What does halt mean? Stop, right? But it also represents 4 things. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Let me tell you, if I feel any of those things, I'm going to my flesh, and my default is I'm going to be selfish. You got to be aware when your tank's getting low of whatever those things are. There might be a combination of them. It could be just one of them. But when you feel hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, halt. Be quiet. Don't open your mouth. Don't do it. Don't say it, because you'll be amazed. When you're not hungry, not angry, not lonely, or not tired, you'll be like, why did I say that? But you already said it, and you already did the damage. That is a practical, I am telling you, in any relationship you have, work relationships, whatever they are, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, you got to recognize in yourself, I'm feeling too, I let my tank get too empty. And you're just going to blast somebody. And who are you going to blast? The person in your house, right? If somebody comes to the door, some annoying salesman, you might be like, hi, how are you? And you've just been in there blasting your spouse, but you're not going to be mean to the person that has come to the door, right? But you're going to give it to them. I'm telling you, remember that one. It's a very easy one to remember, and it's one you got to work on. Be like, oh, that is when I'm the most selfish. Yes, it is. I'm going to read you one more quote, and I'm going to turn things over to Bud. This is the last quote for this part. It's at the bottom of page 77. It is possible to feel you are madly in love with someone when it is really just an attraction to someone who can meet your needs and address the insecurities and doubts you have about yourself. In that kind of relationship, you will demand and control rather than serve and give. The only way to avoid sacrificing your partner's joy and freedom on the altar of your need is to turn to the ultimate lover of your soul, which goes back to what was the very first thing. Did you think I was just making this stuff up? The very first thing you got to do is you got to be full of Jesus. You got to work on that relationship. It's the one that's going to carry you. He voluntarily sacrificed himself on the cross, taking what you deserved for your sins against God and others. On the cross, he was forsaken and experienced the lostness of hell. But he did it all for us. Because of the loving sacrifice of the Son, you can know the heaven of the Father's love through the work of the Spirit. Jesus truly built a heaven in hell's despair. And fortified with the love of God in your soul, you likewise can now give yourself in loving service to your spouse. And then the final line, which is the reference to 1 John 4:19. We love because he first loved us. We love because he first loved us.
If you would stand with me just for a minute, look around the room, see if there's somebody you'd rather be married to. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, I gotta turn this off.
You can just stretch your legs if you need to for a second. They're not what you think. If you brought a Bible, and turn with me to Philippians. Philippians chapter 2, we're going to start there. But let me say this kind of up front. The kind of marriage class, workshop, or whatever that we're doing here is not one of those, 5 steps to a happy marriage kind of things, or 27 things to make your spouse love you, or there's so many of those things out there. And I'm not going to say there's not some good things, but there's a lot of gimmicks as well. What we're teaching only works in lives of people who have surrendered their life to Jesus and have chosen to walk a Spirit-filled life. I'll just tell you up front, because I don't want you to walk out of here thinking you can live kind of half-heartedly where Jesus is concerned, but make this work for your marriage. It just is not going to do it. The only way this works is when He is first. The only way this works is when you have chosen to surrender your life to Him. And because we can't be something for a spouse that we can't give something to a spouse that we haven't received from Him. If I haven't received His love and His forgiveness and received His grace, I can't turn around and give that away. It's impossible. So it has to start there. It has to start at the foundation. But the other things that we're sharing are vitally important. And I did notice it looks like the crowd is just a tad smaller. So I think the circumcision probably class was a little bit painful for some people. I don't know. I think sometimes we struggle in marriage because we struggle to have a relationship with God. Everything has to flow out of that relationship. And if we can't surrender to Him, it's going to be really hard for us to be able to surrender or serve our mate. Am I right? So really it comes down to probably the very first thing that has to happen, we talked about it in the beginning, is that we just really got to lay our heart on the line with Him. It's so... in doing marriage counseling, it is so difficult sometimes. And I've been there. I'm not preaching down to you. I've been in marriage counseling. I've not only done it, I've received it. Carla and I have been to marriage counseling. And it is so easy to see our own faults. To see the other person's faults. And so hard to see our own. And that's one of the things that Chris was talking about, is that God puts two people together that are kind of half. You get a right brain and a left brain, and God puts them together and you get a whole brain. And only in that moment do we really are we really able to see, as I hear from Carla, my sounding board, my mirror, those areas that I'm selfish, just like what you were talking about. I can't see it by myself. I'm blind to it. And so if we can get past that part, man, I'm telling you, we're a long ways toward being able to have joyful, happy marriages. Let me read the scripture in chapter 2. Therefore, if any of you have any encouragement from the Lord, and this, again, listen to this. Therefore, if any of you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, how many people today don't have enough relationship with the Lord that they would say, yeah, I have these things. That's the struggle that I see sometimes. Is that I can't love my wife until I have learned how to love. I've received His love and learned how to love His way. And sometimes we don't receive encouragement from the Lord because we're not up close enough. And so I hope this class, if it doesn't do anything else, takes us all to a deeper relationship with Him. And I promise you, if that happens, the other part will start to come together. Therefore, if any of you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from His love, so His love brings comfort, right? If any common, I like that word, if any common sharing in the Spirit. Our relationship with Him involves common sharing. And we're going to find out that all of these attributes ought to be a part of a marriage as well. If any tenderness, any compassion. Then Paul said, make my joy complete by being like-minded. Have that same mind of Jesus, have the same love, being one in spirit and one mind. And there's some of you saying, but that's not even a marriage passage. That is true. This is just a you and me passage. So how much more important would it be to make sure that this is part of a marriage between two people? Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Nothing. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each of you the interest of the others. In your relationships with one another, you have the same mindset of Christ. Here's what he's saying. Have this mindset in your relationships, not just marriage, in all relationships. This is amazing. Who being in the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. He's equal with God, and yet he doesn't even use that to his advantage. And we could roll that one out in the roles in marriage as well. Rather, he made himself nothing. Did I start my clock? I did not. So I'm going to say I've got 29 minutes left. And being found in appearance, or rather, he made himself nothing by taking on the very nature of a what? A servant. A servant. The Son of God. God took on the very nature of a servant. And when we're being like him, we're going to serve. We're going to do it. So here's what I want to do. Look at those passages. The very first thing, and I'm going to use three things quickly, is serve unselfishly. Serve your spouse unselfishly. He said, without selfish ambition. Serve unselfishly. What does that mean? That means no strings attached. No strings attached. If I had a dime for every time I heard this, that's the reason I cut my counseling. If I can't fix you in a month, I'm going to send you off somewhere else. If I had a dime for every time I've heard, well, bud, I did what you said for 2 weeks and it hasn't done anything. She hasn't moved. I mean, nothing has changed. She's still the way she was. And I'm saying, you created an iceberg in 5 years. You think you're going to melt it in 2 weeks? Was that offensive? No. It's not going to. But what is he doing? Well, she won't have sex with me, so I'm going to clean the kitchen twice. And I don't understand. I cleaned the kitchen, I washed a couple loads of clothes, and it's still not helping. And I'm thinking, well, just keep on. And, I mean, she may hold out forever. This is the first time you've ever done any of that stuff. I don't know. No strings attached. You serve because Jesus loves and served first. He served us by going to the cross. He gave us something that we did not deserve. Am I right? He gave us something that none of us deserved. We're all far worse sinners than we think we are. It's just that it's so much easier to see other people's, but we all have that thing going on. And so if we're not careful, we'll start to attach strings to our service to the other person, and then we have these expectations, and when the expectations are not met, and I will tell you, your spouse knows how to wait you out to see if it's real or not. I mean, it's like, yeah, he does this just occasionally, and then we have a conversation, and he'll do good for 2 weeks, he'll do good for 2 months, and then he's right back to where he was. And I don't know why I'm picking on the men tonight, but I'm hoping this will get back to Carla, and she'll give me a thumbs up like, honey, that was good. You took care of the women tonight. But it happens. It happens. What was the last time that you attached something to your service? What was the last time you had a string attached? And here's what happens. You attach strings. You know it's wrong to attach strings, so you don't tell them that you attached a string, but you react to that string that you had attached when you didn't get what you were planning on getting, and when you didn't get it, now you're mad, but you can't tell them why you're mad because you know it's petty and silly that you attached a string. So now you're leaving them to the point to try to figure out why in the world is she mad? I don't know why she's mad. And she will never tell you why she's mad, because if you loved her, you'd figure it out. See, I told you, men, I wasn't going to leave you out to dry. It's that age-old thing. We don't understand each other. That's why we have to have Jesus. That's why we have to be submitted fully, completely to Him, and then we can serve each other, and we serve the other person because that's the right thing to do. Now, I know that we live in a day where that's not in our thoughts a lot, but it's the right thing because Jesus did it, and we're following His example. Serve unselfishly. Turn loose, cut the strings, cut the ties, and serve and love unselfishly. And if I've got time in a second, I might get up a couple practical things on what that looks like. Here's how you serve unselfishly, though. And it's the only way. I promise you it's the only way, and that is to serve with humility. You cannot serve unselfishly unless you serve with humility. Impossible. Impossible. Jesus humbled Himself and became a servant. He humbled Himself, humbled Himself and went to the cross for you and I. And it's that very same humility that we have to have. Humility that says, I am not better than you. We are in this marriage, and here's why that's important, because when we get into these rough spots, we start going at each other, and we go at each other in pride most of the time. And pride comes off with many different looks and faces. But when we start pointing a finger, it's almost to the other person like saying, I'm better than that, but you are the problem. Is anybody listening? And your spouse's perception is their reality. And we're so conscious of winning arguments sometimes that we fail to listen. We fail to listen with our ears. We fail to listen with our heart. And I think we've all been there. But the one thing that will help prevent that is humility. Humbly, I come to my wife realizing that I am no better than her, and I need to serve her interest above serving my own interest, because that's what Jesus did. And that's what we've been called to do, is serving the other person's interest. And one of the things that happens a lot of times is that, but I don't feel it. I'm angry, I'm mad. And the answer is, it doesn't matter. Serve the other person's interest above your own. After a while, if you do that, you'll start to see something happen. One of the things that happens sometimes and I'm still talking about humility, but one of the things that happens sometimes in the need to win arguments rather than winning the big battle against the enemy that's trying to destroy your marriage is you really win nothing by winning an argument. We fight so hard for it. We fight so hard to be right. Well, no, we know we're already right. We're just fighting real hard to convince them that we're right. And when the defenses are up, nobody's listening. Does that make sense? When I am in defensive mode, all I'm doing is protecting myself. I'm not thinking about your interest. I'm not thinking about your interest. I am protecting myself. And Jesus said, you got to serve the other person's interest above your own interest. And the only way that we can do that is with a spirit of humility. That's hard. That's hard to do when things get tough. It's easy to do the first year, 2 years maybe, it's a little easier. But once you get out of that brain damage stage, it's like you walk into the bathroom one day and you're thinking, it stinks in here. Would you think it was before roses? I mean, it's always been stinking. You know what I'm saying? But you're so brain damaged in love that you don't even smell anything for 2 years. On that second year, I don't know, he just started stinking and I never noticed it. I don't think I can go on. Carla and I were watching this show last night, and this lady on the show, she went into tears about something. And so, you're expecting, this is going to be such a sad story of something about her childhood and something. And so she was just crying, and she said, I was just never able to love myself. But she said, I love myself. I love myself now. And you could see that there was something, all this awesomeness going on in her, because she loves herself. And I promise you, she probably has a birthday month. That's what culture teaches us. Just love yourself. The problem is we have a hard time moving past that. But I will promise you, if you will love Jesus with all you've got, be in his word, you will discover who you are in him, and you will be confident about who you are in him, and you'll be able to love somebody else. Does that make sense? This world has turned it all about self-love, self-everything. And I'm not telling you you ought to be self-loathing. But even loathing is self-loving. I mean, if you really want to get right down to it, it's still all about the same thing. It's about me. It's about it's about me, my. Does anybody know that song? What's the song? Sing it. Do you know it? Lolo, you know it? It's, huh? Do you know the words to it? No? Yeah. Oh. If you need to know how to know when your husband's lying, come talk to me. I can tell you. Because I just saw it happen right in front of me. we have to serve. We have to learn to serve each other with humility. Self-serving. I think sometimes we serve to make ourselves feel good that we've done it. And I shared some of this Sunday morning in I think it was the early service. I don't think I got to it in the second service, but we were talking to somebody a couple weeks ago about toxic charity and how sometimes to make ourselves feel good about something that we've done, we hurt other people. You can enable somebody and force them into a very bad situation just because it makes you feel good. And that really is what enabling is. People who are enablers, they need to feel good about themselves. And so they actually can do harm to other people by doing good. And Christian people, we can be some of the worst at doing that very thing. So if you've got people who, it's like, okay, hot button. Oh, we want to make sure that we take care of all the homeless people, so we've got to make sure that we bring in food. Well, if you don't talk to somebody to find out that we have given so much food in this community that it piles up and it rots in some of the places where some of the homeless people are, it piles up and rots and brings in rodents and brings in all kinds of things. But we feel good. I feel good that I took my taters. I feel good that I took some stuff out of my garden and I took it over there. Doesn't matter anything else. Sometimes it's self-serving. We try to make ourselves feel good rather than finding out what the real need is. Now, hear me. If I am serving Carla, but what I am doing to serve her is not what she needs, I'm actually serving me. Does that make sense? I'm serving her kind of to get what I need. But if I really want to serve, I need to find out, what do you need? I want to serve you. I love you. I want to serve you. What do you need? And we have a conversation. What do you need? When I was a younger guy, I was in ministry. So, hey, I wanted to be super pastor. I don't worry about that now because I know I already am. But back then, no, I'm kidding. That was a little bit of pride there. Let me get back to the humility part. No, I really wanted to be, I wanted to be the best pastor that I could absolutely be. But I did it at the expense of time with my family and my wife. And so my time spent serving and in the Word and prayer and those kinds of things, I never reached back then, I didn't reach back to bring her along with me. So I'm over here being super spiritual pastor while she's taking care of kids and doing all that kind of stuff, but I didn't go back to say, walk with me. Let's do this together. So I was serving, but I wasn't serving her. Your number one service is to your spouse. Pastors lose everything because they serve everybody but their spouse. But it's not just pastors. It's businessmen. It's men who come home late at night because they don't want to have to deal with the kids. They don't want to have to deal with the wife. They don't want to have conversations. So if I come in, if I have to work late every night, I can avoid those things. But you have to have the conversation. Did you notice in that one verse we were talking about common sharing? Common sharing. That we need We're only going to get unity in our marriages when we sit down and we have common sharing and we get to the heart of issues. We talk heart talk. But when this really kicked in, and I hate that it took me so long, but when it really kicked in for me, not going to go into the whole story because you all have heard it, but when Carla, when we found out that she had her brain tumor, all of a sudden, everything just kind of comes to a stop. And it's like, oh my goodness. And at that point, I realized that even at that, I had not served her the way I needed to serve her. And that was a catalyst. That was a catalyst for me. And so, I won't even tell you, I can wash some clothes now. I still can't cook supper. But I can do some things that I used to, I didn't think I could do. And to be honest with you, I'll be honest with you. There were some things that she thought I couldn't do and didn't want me to do because she thought I'd mess it up. She thought I didn't know how to separate white clothes, colored clothes, you know what I'm talking about, and wash them all and everything comes out pink. Yeah. I know how to wash me some clothes. I've learned some things about serving. You got to find out what your wife feels like is serving her. Wives, husbands, or your husband. I seem to be coming down heavy on the guys tonight. But I don't mean to do that because you can flip that. But here's the last thing, and I'm going to close. You got to receive. Humility is as much about receiving in this situation. Whoever is doing the serving has to have someone to serve. But if you're too proud to receive, it's not going to help. So he comes to you and he wants to serve. But you get this attitude. You just turned away the server. Receive it. Yeah, but I don't feel like receive it anyway. I don't care if you feel like it or not. Receive. Just receive. Let him do, receive. Let her do and receive what she has to offer. And this can come in so many different ways. Find out what serving him looks like. Now, we all know his first answer. We'll talk about that on night class 5, is it? Okay. But what's the second answer? You know what? Find out a way to respect him. Find out a way to respect him. Find out a way to show him love. And men, receive it. Receive it. Humility serves and humility receives. Let me pray for your marriages. Father, I praise you. I thank you for every person in this room. Lord, we're all fellow strugglers trying to get to this profound mystery that you spoke to Paul about, and that being marriage and you and the church. Teach us. And may we find our marriages different than every marriage in the world because we have you in the midst. We give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
I don't want that.
Oh, you don't.
Oh, I should receive that. Okay.
I tried to
Thank you, Bud. Thank you, Bud. Thank you. I love it. I love that microphone. Thank you.
I don't need that. Go away.
We should have planned that. That was good.
If we had planned it, it wouldn't have worked out that way.
I know. That's so funny. That's so funny. Thank you, Bud. Listening to Bud, just got a couple things I want to tie up, and then we're going to kind of pull this all together, I hope. If you're sitting here and you're thinking, I'm not sure how to serve, I'm not sure about humility and how to know about that, one of the things I'm going to tell you is one of the most mature places you can come to in your faith is when you can look at your own heart and look at what your motives are for what you say and for what you do. So anytime you blast or you do something nice or anything in between those two, when you can look at yourself and go, why did I just say that? Why did I just do that? Then you are going to come into a very mature place. And seeing you bagged on the men, I'm going to bag on the women just a little bit. Because in counseling over the years, I've seen this much more with women than with the guys. And it doesn't mean the guys are exempt from this, but I see it more in women that, and Bud in one sense talked about this, but I've seen a lot of wives that just are like, they're just going to do and keep doing and doing and doing for their spouse, even if their spouse isn't doing anything in return. But if they looked at the motive of their heart of why they are doing what they're doing, and I see this much more in women, in wives, many are doing it because they want to shame and guilt their husband. That's why they are serving them, and they keep, I'll do it. I'll just do it. I'll go out and cut the grass. I'll just do it. The motive is not, I want to serve you because I am doing love. The motive is, I want to shame and guilt you because you're not giving me something I need. Now, I don't say that easily to anybody, but I'm going to drop that in here because I felt like the Lord said, drop it in here. And so what are the reasons that you're doing what you're doing for your spouse? And I hope you're doing. I hope you are serving. But you have to look and go, why did I do that? Was it because I love them and I want to serve them? Or was it because I want something for myself or I want them to feel shame? And we got to look at that. So that's just a little one I'm going to throw out there. Now we're going to kind of close things out. Let me on the front end give you what your homework is going to be before we go into this last part. So for next week, just read chapter 6. Just one chapter. You're like, oh, that's good. One chapter, that's good. Chapter 6 for next week. We're going to talk about roles. We're really going to pick apart that Ephesians 5 passage where Paul talks about headship and submission. And so it's a volatile conversation. It's things we don't like to talk about and look at, but we're going to talk about them and look at them. And the other thing I want you to do is here is your practical homework, and then we're gonna do one other thing, and I promise I'll get you out of here on time. Your practical thing is ask your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend, how may I serve you this week? Now, there's two parts to this, because the one you ask should not take advantage of the other one with some kind of, I don't know what kind of ask. It has to be reasonable. It has to fit in a time frame. We all got lots and lots of things to do. There's lots of things going on. We don't just get to stop the world and say, we're going to work on our marriage. How can I serve you this week? And if it's possible for you to do it, do it. But do it for a motive that's good. But you ask each other this. So it's not about one person going, what are you going to do for me this week? But you're each asking each other at least one time, how can I serve you this week? And if it's reasonable and if it's possible, do that. Okay, I'll leave that there. Now, so Jesus, his motives were pure in his service. Ours are somewhat, we have to look at them and go, okay, yeah, I wanted something out of that and all those kinds of things, but not Jesus. His motives were pure, and that's our model that we want to be like. Now, Bud talked about his serving us by going to the cross, and that's the ultimate service for us because he loved us. But that's not something that we're supposed to copy. We are not a savior. We have one. We don't need one, and you don't need to be one. So that's not something we're actually going to copy. But there is another passage of Scripture that I think is perfect for the kind of service that we are talking about with each other. So if you have your Bibles and you want to turn to John 13, you can, or you can just listen and kind of follow along. This is a very familiar story, so you're going to recognize this. This is starting at verse 1. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" And Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you'll understand." "No," Peter said, "you shall never wash my feet." And Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." And Jesus answered, "Those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body's clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he did not say everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that's what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." That last verse right there, 17. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed. And there's a little tiny word in there, if you do them. You're going to hear me repeat this line through the rest of this class. When you know better, you do better. When you know better, you do better. And Jesus said, now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. We have the opportunity to serve each other. It has to be for the right reasons. It has to be done. We have to know why we're doing what we're doing. It has to be done in humility. As a closing experience tonight, I want you to, I think visual pictures really seal something into your sight. And so I'm going to ask you to do something. If you were here the first week, I asked you to, you prayed for each other. We're not going to do that tonight. But I did give you a little handout on your chair. And so in just what we're going to do in just a minute, if you are with your significant other, I am going to ask you to wash each other's hands. Now, you may think this is going to be a silly thing. If you can't do this with a straight face and you need to look at your spouse and you guys crack up while you're doing it, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And the reason you would do that is because this is awkward and this is intimate. And we tend to not do these kinds of things for each other. And Bud talked about that there is a giving, but there is a receiving. And so you're going to do that one at a time. And so one will wash the other one's hands with your little towel. Everybody will go home super sanitized. It's a little bonus. And then you will wash the other person's hands. And if you can, I want you to look in your significant other's eyes while you do it. That's hard. But these are the kinds of things that we are just not used to doing. And let me say, if you are here and you're single or you're by yourself, don't feel left out. I would like you to, it really isn't funny that you wash your own hands. Because I want you to think about Jesus doing that just like he did. But see, when he did it, he couldn't wash his disciples' feet unless he got on the ground. The King of Kings and Lord of Lords got on the ground to serve. And there has to be a moment where you receive the gift. There has to be a moment when you give the gift. And all the things that have gotten in the way, all the things that you're like, here's my list of things I'm unhappy about, and you didn't do this and you didn't do that, they fall away. And while we're doing this, I had picked out a song that Kayla downloaded for me, and it's going to play. It's a love song. Some of you are like, oh, this is like really going to be intimate, like a date. Here's what I'm going to tell you. It's not the kind of love song that you hear out in the world that's about me and you, baby, and some of them that lead to other things that really I don't think should be in a love song, but they tend to go there. This is going to be a song about God and you. And you're like, what? Why is that a love song? And I'll tell you why that's a love song. Because this is how the covenant works. As you run after him, you're running after your spouse. Because he's in the middle. And it pulls tight. And that's why it's a love song. You've got to keep the Lord in the middle of your love. And so it's going to be very much about him, but very much about you too as well. So if you all will go ahead and play that song, and you just take your time and go ahead and have that experience. I can make you an easy promise. Put the Lord in the center of who you are. Make everything you do and everything you are swirl and tether around him. And I promise you, he's going to draw you close. The world, the enemy, will stop at nothing to try to divide you and tear you apart. And he will use our selfish flesh to do that. But I'm telling you, there's nothing more beautiful than a husband to serve his wife and a wife to serve her husband out of love. Because then and only then do we see the fulfillment of the kingdom. And that is why the world and Satan hates marriage. Because he doesn't want to see the fulfillment of the kingdom. If your relationship, your marriage, whatever it has been up to this point has not been everything you thought it was going to be, you start again. If you have been 3 sort of separate pieces, you start again right now with him in the middle. And I promise you, the joy, the feels, they will come. First is the doing. Let me pray, and then we will go home. Father God, we have all given and received tonight. We've submitted. We think about you, Jesus, on the ground. You are already getting ready to do the greatest thing that would save us. You were going to go to a cross. And instead of thinking about yourself and taking a few moments for yourself, you made yourself a servant. And you did it for love. You didn't do it for any other motives. Lord, help us to check our hearts. Why did I say that? Why did I do that? And Lord, as we learn to know better, we will do better. We thank you for the example of how to love the only way that's ever going to make sense. And we give you praise, so much praise. It's in your name we pray. Amen.